Captain Rebecca Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNSS Discovery, staring at the holographic display with barely contained excitement. The massive creature floating in the void was unlike anything humanity had encountered in their 50 years of deep space exploration. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Her first officer, Lieutenant James Park, looked at her with concern. "Captain, that thing is 300 meters long. The xenobiology database classifies it as a Vermis stellaris, a void predator. Protocol says we should maintain distance." Rebecca ignored him, moving closer to the viewport. The creature was serpentine, its body covered in bioluminescent patches that pulsed with soft blue and purple light. Instead of eyes, it had sensory organs that resembled flower petals, which opened and closed as it drifted through space. Its skin appeared smooth and almost translucent, revealing what looked like stars flowing through its body. The Galactic Council had warned humanity about these creatures during their induction ceremony 6 months ago. Ambassador Thexlar, a four-armed insectoid from the Chitauri Empire, had been particularly adamant. "The Vermis are dangerous parasites," he had clicked. "They attach to ships, drain energy, and have been responsible for countless station failures. Avoid them at all costs." But Rebecca saw something different. The way the creature moved wasn't aggressive, it was graceful, almost playful. When the Discovery had first detected it, the Vermis had approached slowly, its body undulating in what she could only describe as curiosity. "Run a full scan," Rebecca ordered. "Non-invasive. I want to know everything about this magnificent creature." "Captain, the Council protocols," James began. "Our recommendations, not laws," Rebecca finished. "We're scientists, Lieutenant. Our job is to understand, not to fear." The science team worked through the night, and what they discovered fascinated Rebecca even more. The Vermis communicated through electromagnetic pulses, similar to Earth's dolphins. It fed on solar radiation and cosmic particles, not on ship energy as the Council claimed. The instances of attacks were likely the creatures seeking warmth near ships' engines, not unlike cats sitting near heaters. Dr. Patricia Hayes, the chief xenobiologist, approached Rebecca with her findings. "Captain, I think the Council has fundamentally misunderstood these creatures. Look at this brain scan, the complexity is remarkable. This isn't a mindless predator. The neural patterns suggest intelligence, maybe even emotional capacity." Rebecca made her decision. "Open a communication channel. Let's try electromagnetic pulses, simple patterns to start." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances, but they obeyed. Within minutes, the Vermis responded, its bioluminescent patches flashing in rhythmic patterns that seemed almost joyful. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment humanity met their first space worm, and decided to make a friend. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called within 48 hours of Rebecca's report. She stood in the massive amphitheater aboard Council Station Prime, surrounded by representatives from 40 different species, all of them staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to outright horror. Ambassador Thexlar's mandibles clicked furiously. "You did what?" "We established communication with the Vermis," Rebecca repeated calmly. "We've named her Luna. She's been following our ship peacefully for 2 days now, and we've learned." "You named it?" The interruption came from Counselor Vortax, a crystalline being whose body reflected light in sharp, angry patterns. "Captain Morrison, do you understand the danger you've put your crew in? These creatures are known parasites." Rebecca pulled up her data on the central hologram. "With respect, Counselor, our research suggests otherwise. Every incident you've documented can be explained by miscommunication and fear-based responses. The Vermis don't attack ships, they're curious about them. When crews panic and fire weapons, the creatures defend themselves." High Counselor Mira Seth, an elderly being from the Etherian Collective, leaned forward. Her species was known for their wisdom and patience. "Captain Morrison, you are new to galactic society. The protocols regarding Vermis stellaris have existed for over 3,000 years, established after numerous tragic encounters. Then perhaps those protocols need updating, Rebecca said firmly. We've been exchanging information with Luna for 2 days. She's intelligent, capable of complex thought patterns, and shows no aggressive tendencies. In fact, she's remarkably gentle. The chamber erupted in multiple languages, creating a cacophony of disbelief. Ambassador Thexlar's translator managed to cut through. Gentle? Gentle? These creatures have destroyed 17 research stations in the past century alone. Because those stations fired on them first, Rebecca countered, displaying her evidence. Look at the records, really look at them. In every case, the Vermis approached peacefully. Defensive weapons were activated. The creatures responded to being attacked. This isn't predation, it's self-defense. Dr. Hayes stepped forward to support her captain. We've also discovered that Vermis communicate emotional states through their bioluminescence. What the Council has interpreted as preparing to attack is actually excitement or curiosity. The color patterns are completely different from actual threat displays. Counselor Vortax's crystalline body darkened. This is madness. Humans have been in space for barely 50 years, and already you think you know better than civilizations that have existed for millennia? We're not claiming to know better, Rebecca said. We're offering new perspective. On Earth, we've domesticated wolves into dogs, tamed horses, trained dolphins. We have a history of forming bonds with creatures others feared. Why should space be different? High Counselor Miraseth raised a hand for silence. Captain Morrison, what you propose is unprecedented. The risks are worth taking, Rebecca finished. Luna has already taught us new things about space navigation. She can sense gravitational anomalies hours before our instruments detect them. She's saved us from a collision with dark matter debris. If anything, she's protecting us. The council session ended without resolution, but Rebecca noticed something interesting as she left. Some of the younger council members, particularly from species that hadn't had direct encounters with the Vermis, looked thoughtful rather than dismissive. Change, she realized, wouldn't come from the old guard. It would come from those willing to question what had always been assumed to be true. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after the council meeting. The Discovery was conducting routine surveys near the Kepler belt when their sensors detected something unusual, a massive gravitational anomaly forming rapidly, the signature of an unstable wormhole about to collapse. Captain, we need to move now. James shouted as alarms blared across the bridge. That wormhole is going to create a shockwave that will tear us apart. Rebecca was about to give the order to engage emergency thrusters when Luna, who had been peacefully drifting alongside the ship, suddenly shot forward. Her massive body began to glow with an intensity they'd never seen before, shifting from soft blues and purples to brilliant gold and white. What's she doing? Dr. Hayes whispered, her eyes locked on the viewport. The Vermis positioned herself between the Discovery and the unstable wormhole, her body beginning to vibrate at a frequency that registered on every instrument on the ship. Then, impossibly, Luna began to emit an energy field that their sensors could barely comprehend, a controlled gravitational wave that intersected with the collapsing wormhole. She's stabilizing it, the science officer breathed. Captain, that shouldn't be possible. The energy required to. The wormhole steadied, its chaotic fluctuations smoothing into a stable pattern. Luna held the field for 30 agonizing seconds, her entire body blazing like a star, before the anomaly finally dispersed harmlessly. Then Luna went dark. Medical team to the cargo bay. Now! Rebecca shouted, already running from the bridge. They had converted one of the larger bays into a habitat for Luna, with electromagnetic fields that she found comfortable and heat lamps that simulated the solar radiation she fed on. When Rebecca arrived, Luna was floating motionless, her bioluminescent patches barely flickering. Dr. Hayes was already running scans, her face pale. She exhausted herself completely, Patricia said. That energy expenditure. Captain, she saved us, but it nearly killed her. Rebecca approached the viewport separating them from Luna's habitat, pressing her hand against the transparent material. Come on, girl. Stay with us. For hours, the crew worked to help Luna recover. They redirected power from non-essential systems to boost the heat lamps. They generated electromagnetic pulses in patterns Luna had shown preference for, what they had come to understand as comforting sounds in her language. James brought coffee to Rebecca at the 3-hour mark. The council is calling. They detected the gravitational anomaly and want a status report. Tell them we're busy, Rebecca said, not taking her eyes off Luna. Tell them we're taking care of our friend. It was Dr. Hayes who noticed it first, a small flicker of purple near Luna's sensory petals. Then another. Slowly, like stars coming out at dusk, Luna's bioluminescence returned. The pattern she displayed was one they'd never seen before. Dr. Hayes consulted her database of recorded patterns, and her eyes widened. Captain, this pattern. It's similar to what Earth cetaceans use. It's not just communication, it's affection. Rebecca felt tears on her cheeks. She knows we stayed with her. She knows we care. Luna's recovery took 3 days, but the bond between human and vermis had fundamentally changed. She had saved them, and they had refused to leave her side. Word spread quickly through the small human fleet, and other captains began reporting their own vermis encounters, not as threats, but as potential allies. The council could ignore Rebecca's theories, but they couldn't ignore this: humans and vermis were forming something unprecedented in galactic history. They were forming friendship. The video went viral across human networks within hours. Someone on the Discovery had recorded Luna's recovery, showing Captain Morrison sitting by the viewport for 3 days, talking to the vermis, encouraging her to keep fighting. The footage of Luna's bioluminescence returning, forming that pattern of affection, had been viewed over 1 billion times. But it was what came after that truly sparked the movement. The UNSS Endeavour reported their own vermis encounter, this time, a smaller one, only about 100 meters long. Captain David Richardson had followed Morrison's protocols for peaceful communication. Within a week, Comet, as the crew had named their vermis, was helping them map asteroid fields with unprecedented accuracy. Then came the UNSS Horizon with Starlight, and the UNSS Pathfinder with Nebula. Within 3 months, 8 human ships had established relationships with Vermis Stellaris. The creatures weren't just tolerating human presence, they were actively seeking it out. Back on Earth, the debate raged in every parliament, news network, and social media platform. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the leading voice of the xenoconservation movement, appeared on the largest broadcast network to make her case. We need to proceed carefully, she warned, her face serious. Yes, these early interactions have been positive, but we're talking about wild creatures in their natural habitat. We don't fully understand their social structures, their breeding patterns, their ecological role. What if our interference disrupts cosmic ecosystems we can't even perceive? Her opponent in the debate was Professor Marcus Webb, a xenobiologist who had spent weeks analyzing all the vermis interaction data. Dr. Vasquez raises valid concerns, he acknowledged. But let's be clear, what we're seeing isn't exploitation. The vermis are choosing to interact with us. They can leave at any time, yet they stay. This isn't domestication in the traditional sense, it's mutualism. Both species benefit from the relationship. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Ambassador Thexlar had submitted a formal motion to restrict human contact with vermis, citing safety concerns. But younger council members, particularly from recently inducted species, were pushing back. Councillor Gennari, a mammalian being from the Tauran Republic, stood to speak. Perhaps the humans are showing us something we were too rigid to see. My own people have records of vermis encounters from before we joined the council. Our ancestors called them star dancers and considered them good omens. It was only after council induction that we learned to fear them. High Counselor Mira Seth had been quiet through most of the debate, but now she spoke. There is precedent for revision of protocols. 3,000 years is time enough for assumptions to become treated as facts. I propose we send an official observation team to study these human-vermis interactions. The vote was narrow, but it passed. Within a month, the observation team arrived at the Discovery, and they were shocked by what they found. Luna wasn't confined or controlled. She came and went as she pleased, sometimes disappearing for days to feed on solar winds from nearby stars. But she always returned. More surprisingly, she had begun bringing things back: crystalline formations from asteroid fields, samples of exotic cosmic dust, once even a small meteorite that turned out to contain a new element. "She's sharing her finds with us," Dr. Hayes explained to the stunned observers. "Like a cat bringing mice to its owner, or a dog bringing sticks. She understands that we're curious about the universe, and she's helping us explore it." The lead observer, a scholarly being named Kelvar from the Archival Collective, spent hours watching Luna interact with the crew. When it was time to file his report, his words would change everything. "This is not predation. This is not parasitism. This is not even simple mutualism. What I have witnessed is the formation of an interspecies bond based on genuine affection and mutual respect. The humans have not tamed the vermis, they have befriended them." The message came through on a priority council channel, bypassing all normal protocols. High Counselor Mira Setha's face appeared on Rebecca's screen, and for the first time since they'd met, the ancient being looked afraid. "Captain Morrison, we need your help. There's been an incident at mining colony Theta 7. A swarm of vermis has surrounded the station. There are 3,000 people trapped inside. Our defense fleet is preparing to fire, but..." She paused. "Before we do something irreversible, we wanted to ask if your methods might offer an alternative." Rebecca felt her blood run cold. "A swarm? Counselor, vermis are solitary creatures. We've never seen more than one in the same sector. There are 47 of them, Captain. The largest concentration ever recorded. They appeared 6 hours ago and have been circling the station. The colony administrator ordered the defensive weapons armed, but so far, no one has fired. You have 12 hours before the fleet arrives with orders to eliminate the threat." The Discovery arrived at Theta 7 with Luna leading the way, 9 hours after receiving the call. What Rebecca saw through the viewport made her heart sink. Dozens of vermis, ranging from juveniles barely 50 meters long to massive adults that dwarfed even Luna, formed a slowly rotating spiral around the mining colony. "Dr. Hayes, what are we seeing?" Patricia was analyzing every sensor reading they had. "Captain, look at their bioluminescence patterns. Those aren't threat displays. They're all showing the same pattern, synchronized. I think this is some kind of communication behavior we haven't seen before." Luna suddenly broke formation, swimming forward toward the swarm. Rebecca's hand hovered over the emergency recall command they developed, but she forced herself to wait. Luna approached the largest vermis in the group, a massive creature nearly 400 meters long, its body marked with scars that spoke of great age. The two creatures touched sensory petals, and their bioluminescence synced into a pattern of such complexity that the Discovery's computers struggled to analyze it. "They're talking," James whispered. "Luna is communicating with them." What happened next would be studied for generations. Luna returned to the Discovery, her light patterns urgent and rapid. Dr. Hayes translated what they could: danger, warning, help, protect, children. "Children?" Rebecca repeated. Then it hit her. The mining colony. What are they mining? A quick scan of the colony's operations database revealed the answer. Theta 7 had recently begun extraction operations in a new asteroid field, a field rich with a particular type of crystalline formation that generated heat and electromagnetic energy. "They're not attacking the colony," Rebecca breathed. "They're trying to protect their eggs. Those crystalline formations the colony has been mining for the past 3 months, they're vermis incubation sites." The implications crashed over the bridge crew like a wave. Humanity's first potential conflict with the vermis wasn't about aggression, it was about a fundamental misunderstanding. The colony had been destroying vermis nurseries, and the parents had come to protect what remained of their young. Rebecca opened a channel to both the colony and High Counselor Mira Seth. "Stand down all weapons. I repeat, stand down all weapons. This is not an attack, it's a rescue mission." The colony administrator appeared on screen, his face red with anger. "Captain, I have 3,000 people on this station surrounded by hostile creatures. I will not." "They're not hostile." Rebecca cut him off. "You've been mining their children. Stop the mining operations immediately, and I believe they'll leave peacefully." "You believe?" "Believe? I'm not risking lives on your belief, Captain." High Counselor Mira Seth's voice carried the weight of her authority. "Administrator Cole, you will follow Captain Morrison's instructions. That is a direct order from the Council." What followed were the most tense hours of Rebecca's life. The mining operations ceased. Slowly, carefully, the colony began returning the crystalline formations they'd already extracted back to the asteroid field. The adult vermis watched every move, their bodies tense, ready to defend their young. But they didn't attack. They waited. When the last formation was returned, Luna and the massive elder vermis touched sensory petals again. Then, one by one, the vermis began to gently collect the formations, cradling them in specialized folds in their bodies that the humans had never noticed before. As the swarm prepared to leave, something remarkable happened. Several of the vermis, including the elder, approached the discovery and displayed a pattern that Luna had shown them before, gratitude mixed with respect. The crisis had been averted. But more than that, a profound truth had been revealed: the vermis weren't just intelligent. They were parents, protectors, a species with families and love for their young, just like humanity. The Theta-7 incident changed everything. Within a week, the Council had suspended all mining operations in sectors known to contain the crystalline formations. Within a month, they'd established the first interstellar protection protocols for vermis nursery sites. Within 3 months, the first non-human captain reported a peaceful vermis encounter using human protocols. Captain Morrison became an overnight celebrity, though she handled the attention with her characteristic focus on the work itself. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated humanity's unique approach to xenobiology. The UNSS Sanctuary was commissioned, the first ship designed specifically for vermis research and interaction. Unlike traditional research vessels that studied subjects from a distance, the Sanctuary was built as a collaborative space. Dr. Patricia Hayes led the science team, and their mission statement was revolutionary: to learn from the vermis, not just about them. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a junior engineer named Tommy Rodriguez on the UNSS Endeavour. Tommy had been watching Comet, their resident vermis, perform what he called dances around asteroid fields. He noticed that Comet's movements weren't random, they followed mathematical patterns similar to orbital mechanics but far more complex. What if they're not just moving through space? Tommy proposed in his report. What if they're reading it? Like, space itself has currents and flows we can't perceive, but they can? Dr. Hayes brought Tommy to the Sanctuary to test his theory. Using Luna and 3 other vermis who'd chosen to stay near human ships, they conducted experiments that seemed impossible. The vermis could detect gravitational variations too subtle for any human instrument. They could sense magnetic field fluctuations across light years. They could predict solar flares hours before they occurred. They're not just living in space, Patricia announced in her findings. They're part of space. Their sensory organs don't just detect electromagnetic radiation, they perceive the fundamental fabric of spacetime itself. They experience dimensions of reality we can only theorize about. The implications for human space travel were staggering. With Vermis guidance, ships could navigate more safely through dangerous sectors. They could avoid gravitational anomalies, predict cosmic weather, find stable routes through previously impassable regions. But it was the cultural exchange that fascinated Rebecca most. The Vermis had language, yes, but more than that, they had art. Their bioluminescent displays weren't just communication, they were poetry, storytelling, music all combined into one. Luna had begun teaching the crew her people's history, displaying patterns that showed the birth of stars, the formation of galaxies, cosmic events that had occurred millions of years before humanity even evolved. "We thought we were exploring space," Rebecca said during an interview for the Galactic Network. "But the Vermis have been exploring it for eons. They've witnessed things we've only dreamed about." Every time Luna shares a memory, it's like reading a chapter from the universe's autobiography. The Galactic Council formally revised their protocols regarding Vermis Stellaris 6 months after the Theta-7 incident. Ambassador Thexlar, surprisingly, was one of the voices advocating for change. He approached Rebecca during the celebration ceremony. "I owe you an apology, Captain," he clicked, his mandibles moving in a gesture Patricia had taught them meant sincerity in his species. "My people, we have a saying, the first scratch teaches us the claw. We were scratched once by the Vermis and never looked beyond our fear to see the hand that might have been offered in peace." "It takes wisdom to admit when we're wrong," Rebecca replied. "I hope humans remember that lesson when we encounter the next dangerous species." By the end of the first year, over 100 ships across multiple species had established peaceful relationships with Vermis. The creatures were no longer classified as void predators, but as void shepherds, a name the Vermis themselves had approved of through their complex light patterns. But perhaps the most telling change was the smallest one. Children across the galaxy, human and alien alike, no longer drew pictures of Vermis as monsters. They drew them as friends, as guides, as magnificent creatures who danced among the stars. The age of fear was ending. The age of friendship had begun. 2 years after that first encounter, Captain Rebecca Morrison stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the first cooperative research facility built by humans and the Galactic Council working together. Below, visible through the massive transparent floor, Luna swam gracefully through space, her body glowing with the soft purple and blue that the crew had come to recognize as contentment. But Luna wasn't alone. Swimming beside her were dozens of other Vermis, and not just adults. For the first time in recorded galactic history, Vermis juveniles were being observed openly, playfully looping around their parents and the human ships with fearless curiosity. Dr. Patricia Hayes stood beside Rebecca, now the director of the Vermis Research Institute. "Do you remember when we first saw her? When everyone thought we were crazy for not running away?" Rebecca smiled. "I remember you telling me about her neural complexity. I remember thinking that anything with a brain that sophisticated had to be more than just a predator." "We were lucky," Patricia said softly. "It could have gone wrong in a dozen different ways." "It wasn't luck," a voice said behind them. High Counselor Miraseth approached, moving with the slow grace of her advanced age. "It was courage. And compassion. 2 qualities humanity has brought to the Council in abundance." The 3 of them watched as a young Vermis, barely 20 meters long, approached the station's viewport. Its sensory petals opened wide, and it displayed a pattern of pure curiosity, the same pattern Luna had shown 2 years ago. "They trust us now," Miraseth continued. "After 3,000 years of fear and conflict, the Vermis have learned that not all species will hurt them. Because you chose to see them as living beings worthy of respect rather than threats to be eliminated." Rebecca's communicator chimed. It was Lieutenant James Park, now captain of his own ship, the UNSS Harmony, which had just returned from a mission to the Outer Rim. "Captain Morrison, you're going to want to see this." We've made contact with a species the Council classified as extremely dangerous. They call themselves the KRYTHMAR, and they're basically sentient lava flows. The Council says they've destroyed every probe ever sent to their system. Rebecca exchanged a glance with Patricia, who was already grinning. Let me guess, the probes probably landed in what the KRYTHMAR consider sacred sites or breeding grounds. James laughed. You know, that was my first thought too. I've been reading your first contact protocols. With your permission, I'd like to try the Luna approach: observe, learn, communicate before assuming hostility. Permission granted, Captain Park. And James? Take lots of pictures. I think we're going to need them for the training manuals. As the call ended, Ambassador Thexlar joined the group on the observation deck. He'd become one of humanity's strongest advocates on the Council, much to everyone's surprise. Captain Morrison, I've been reviewing the requests from the younger species in the Council. 17 different civilizations want to establish their own Vermis interaction programs. They're all citing human methodology. That's wonderful, Rebecca said, meaning it. It's revolutionary, Thexlar corrected. For millennia, the Council's approach to unknown species has been caution first, understanding later. You've inverted that entire philosophy. Some of the older members still resist, but even they cannot argue with the results. Luna suddenly appeared directly in front of the viewport, her massive form filling the entire view. Her bioluminescence shifted into a pattern they'd recorded hundreds of times now, the one that meant joy, family, home. Behind her, the juvenile Vermis mimicked the pattern, learning from her example. Dr. Hayes checked her tablet. The Xenolinguistics AI has finished analyzing 2 years of Vermis communication patterns. It's confirmed what we suspected: they have different regional dialects, family-specific patterns passed down through generations, even what appears to be poetry and music distinct to different populations. A culture, Rebecca said softly. Not just intelligence, but civilization. Without cities or technology as we understand it, Patricia added. They've built their civilization from relationships, from memory, from art. They carry their entire culture in their bodies, in the patterns they share. Every Vermis is a living library. A young human officer approached, her expression excited. Captain Morrison, there's a delegation of schoolchildren from Earth on their way up. They're hoping to see Luna. Is this a good time? Rebecca looked at the Vermis swimming peacefully outside the station, at the juveniles playing among the stars, at the future that was unfolding before them. It's a perfect time. Let's show the next generation what's possible when we choose friendship over fear. As the children filed onto the observation deck, their eyes wide with wonder, Rebecca reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had entered the galactic community as the newcomers, the inexperienced species that others viewed with skepticism. Now, they were teaching some of the galaxy's oldest civilizations a lesson that should have been obvious all along: that the universe was vast enough for compassion, that the stars were bright enough to see by without fear, and that the greatest discoveries weren't found in distant nebulae or exotic planets. They were found in connection. In understanding. In the choice to reach out a hand, or a sensory pedal, in friendship. Luna's bioluminescence shifted to a new pattern, one they'd never seen before. The Xenolinguistics AI translated it immediately: new friends, welcome. Let me show you the stars. And as the children pressed against the viewport, laughing with delight as Luna began her dance, Rebecca Morrison knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was full of species yet to meet, creatures yet to understand, friendships yet to forge. And humanity, with their peculiar habit of seeing pets where others saw predators, would be there to help build bridges across the cosmos, one unlikely friendship at a time.